Want to break down on some of the latest topics from college to the pros? We interview many individuals to share their knowledge about the news stories surrounding the teams and its players. This is Nothing But That Sports Talk. Welcome to another episode of Nothing But That Sports Talk. I'm Rafique Louison. My special guest at this time, Ryan.
Ryan Walker in the building.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Also known as Wavy Walker on Instagram.
Definitely.
Just follow him, Wavy Walker. Look him up, Tell us a little bit about what you do.
My name is Ryan Walker. I'm happy to be here on the show. Mm-hmm. And I'm just a sports nut. I went to college and definitely I wrote for my school papers. I played varsity basketball, everything like that. And I knew if I couldn't still be playing sports, I'd rather always be around it. So I'm like one of those sports fanatics, sports hackers, especially for the basketball scene. You'll see me at any event all over New York City or New York State. So basketball is our life, and basically that's how me and Rafique definitely got a connection. And we're here now. We're ready today, right? We're here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you wrote for, like what schools you wrote for, what college you attended, where you played varsity ball.
Definitely. I went to leadership and public service. There's still schools down by the World Trade Center area, Trinity Place. And I went to Cheyney University of Pennsylvania. It's the oldest historically black college in the nation. Not the first, but the oldest. And my first year there, I tried out with my team and, I rode the bench. I made the team, but I rode the bench. And I learned a lot from basically being at a Division II program in the history. But I just, sometimes people don't have the realism of what's going on in their life. And I knew I wasn't going to be no NBA star, make it to the next level. So I decided that, if I couldn't play sports, I would rather write or still be around the environment. And I decided to go into sports writing and became the sports editor of my school. So I did that for 3 years. Should have brought some articles myself. But just doing this whole sports editing thing, that got me to see, sports through a different eye. Sometimes you can see it through a fan's eye. You can see it through a manager's eye. When you can see it through a media's eye as well, too, you get to see, both microcosms of how things are. Because it's tough when you're a fan and you want certain things to work a certain way, but you don't understand that there's a lot of different politics or a lot of different things that goes on behind closed doors that make, everything is what it is. So that's really what it is with me. I wrote for my school paper, Cheyney University of Pennsylvania, for 3 years doing sports editing, and, now the rest is history.
Yeah, I can tell. So, tell us a little bit about, how you grew into the sport of basketball or sports in general.
Well, I was blessed. I really say I was blessed because, my parents are both Jamaican. When my mom came here to America per se, I was born in Toronto, Canada, but when she came here, first place we lived with my stepfather was in Harlem. And Harlem is one of the, if not the epicenter for street basketball or basketball in general, with the many different legends and players that have come out of Harlem. And then we stayed there for a couple months, but then my stepfather ended up getting a promotion, and then he became the superintendent at Dyckman. And that's where the connection with Dyckman and me came in per se, where him living in the neighborhood, and we all went there now because he was the superintendent. Dyckman Park was literally 3 blocks away from my house. I could walk a straight caveat and go to it. And it's a funny story because one of my good friends, Carl, who still lives in Dyckman Projects, and his father's there too, his father's a very good man. The first year that it had started as a tournament, we were all playing ball in our own schools and so on and so forth. And he went to school with me too. And he's telling me, yeah, Dyckman Park, the tournament is going to start. And my mother was like so crazy then, she didn't want me to go down. She's like, oh, you can't go to the projects and da-da-da-da-da. So the first year I didn't play. And I missed out on it. And it was, such a good event, such good camaraderie. And the second year around, I was like, I don't care what it is. If I got to sneak down there, I'm going to go play. And the second year I did go to play in the tournament, and I played for a few years, even afterwards, because the environment was just big time. And so I remember Kenny and Ralph and all of them before it is what it is right now. And those guys are out there grinding and building the tournament to what we see today. It used to be metal backboards and chain nets, and they used to be doing the scoreboard and the nets and everything at the same time. So what we see right now is many years of work on what they built to make it what it is right now. You literally had to see from where it started from to now. And that's my connection with Dyckman and basketball, that I was so blessed to be able to just walk 3 blocks down the road and see some of the greatest and some of the best, street ballers and some NBA and college guys play for the last 25 to 30 years,
That has to be incredible.
Yeah.
And I know, and I actually speak from experience this time because I did cover a few Dyckman games myself, like Dominant Power. Those teams were just incredible. And it was even incredible watching Lance Stevenson take over Dyckman Park, leading the team to a championship. And Isaiah Whitehead, I don't even know what to say. It's just so speechless for me to talk about how incredible Lance Stevenson and Isaiah Whitehead was. Like
the environments.
What was going through your mind when you saw these guys pull off the championship run that they've had?
I mean, it becomes norm. When you've been watching so many of these guys, this is not to discredit Lance or Isaiah Whitehead because those guys are big time, you know what I mean? And we know what they accomplished for basketball, but that's regular. When you've been going to the Tri-States or the Rucker Parks or the Dyckmans and so on and so forth, and you see these guys all the time, many different college and NBA players, you don't become starstruck anymore. So where now when you see them, you're there to see what they can do on the basketball court. You know what I mean? And we've been watching guys like that come there all the time. Kevin Durant has been at Dyckman Park. Kyrie didn't get to play, but Kyrie came to Dyckman Park, and Kyrie has come many other different times to show up. There's been Kemba.
Kyrie Irving was at that New York versus New York tournament last summer. That's
correct.
If you're gonna get it, you gotta get it real early this summer.
Yes.
It's gonna be tough to get into these games. We have a lot of people watching basketball that they couldn't afford to watch if they were going to a Knicks.
Absolutely.
Unless you have a solid job, but yeah, and I know from my own experience. Watching these Dyckman games was just incredible in the night.
The environment is incredible. And you mentioned something that's very key where, not everybody can afford to purchase a ticket to go to the Barclays or can afford to purchase a ticket to the Garden. We got people that might live in New York for their whole life and never can get a chance to go to Madison Square Garden or Barclays because, it costs, of course, you know what I mean? And when you come to Dyckman Park, that's your opportunity to feel like you're at Madison Square Garden,
Square Garden
and that's why we call it that, because you're getting celebrities, ball players, top D1 guys, D2 guys, top high school upcoming kids. That 14-year-old, that's a sensation, might be on the NBA court in 6 years. You know what I mean?
Especially the ones playing the Summer Classic.
Yeah, correct. And so you might have to pay $100 or $200 to see them in a few years compared to you getting to see them now. I could tell my kids that I seen Kevin Durant play. I didn't have to go to Oklahoma. I didn't have to go to Golden State. I didn't have to necessarily purchase a ticket at the Barclays to see. So I seen him play at Dyckman Park. And those are some of the things. Markelle Fultz was playing at Dyckman Park a few years ago. Now he's in the league. He had his struggles, but now he's making a name for himself. And you could just walk in the park one day and see him for free.
A lot of guys are making a name for themselves after playing some years at Dyckman Park.
Yeah.
Especially Kevin Durant. Back-to-back championship with the Warriors. And, he came to the Brooklyn Nets. He obviously couldn't play this season, but he's going to end up playing next year.
He'll be back, absolutely.
This leads to a very interesting question. The Brooklyn Nets struggles. Even though they did win back-to-back games, they don't have Kevin Durant. Kyrie Irving was out for 2 months. But yet they did have a plus 500 record when Kyrie Irving wasn't playing. They bring this guy back, you get smoked by the Jazz. You choked against the Philadelphia 76ers again.
Yeah, we'll take that one.
It's just, and Kyrie Irving's getting a lot of heat for how disappointing he's been during his first year playing in Brooklyn. It's not really his fault. This is his first year playing in the Brooklyn Nets uniform. Not to mention, he had a 50-point game, couldn't hit a game-winning shot. It's just a lot to take in for a guy who's been having his little key struggles. But you know what? Brooklyn's holding their own. They are 5 games ahead of the Charlotte Hornets for the last spot in the playoffs, a potential matchup against Milwaukee. They're not going to go any further than 5 games against Milwaukee. I'm sorry. As much as I would love to that, we'll get more to that when we preview the 2020 NBA playoffs. But when you think about Kyrie Irving's struggles in Brooklyn,
I'm a little bit more fair than the average mind. Even though his comments that he made the other day probably wasn't the best comments to make at the time, but I don't know Kyrie personally. I've been around Kyrie a few times, of course, because of these events, and I know his father and so on and so forth, and grew up watching Rod Strickland, very very good Rod. But from people that I do that know him and talked about certain things, nothing bad to say about Kyrie, because trust me, Kyrie, what he does for New York and him being around is amazing. But Kyrie's a very, I don't want to say weird, but he's an interesting guy. I'm a Duke fan, and I've been watching Kyrie from like junior year because I know that Duke was recruiting him from very early, and I was ecstatic if he was going to go to Duke, which he ended up did. But I mean, this is the same Kyrie that thought the world was flat, or throwing that premonition out that was flat, and was on the Cavaliers with LeBron. Probably should have stayed that extra year and rode out and see what could have happened. He decided he wanted to go to another team to be the leader. He got that other team. He went to the Celtics. They started off great, and see that's the thing that people don't talk about. We always try to nitpick with all these players about what they do wrong, but we don't pay attention to the things that they do right. We criticize more what they do wrong rather than what they do right. And he went to the Celtics the first year, and they were amazing at the start of the season. Even in the middle of the season, he got hurt. That put a little bit of derailment on things, but the Celtics keep going. They're coached very well by Brad Stevens. Their culture is very good. Their management is good. So everything stayed afloat. They had a lot of players on that team. They made the conference final run. The next year comes. They all had their issues.
One of the most disappointing seasons you could ever see, even though you swept the Indiana Pacers, but you got one game for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Well, that's what I'm saying. His numbers were still there. He produced. And other guys played well too. Did they have chemistry issues? Did they have locker room issues? Absolutely. That's probably what stopped them from going as far as what it was. But in hindsight, the average person is going to say, they didn't do that well with Kyrie. They were one round away from where they were the year before. And they played LeBron the year before. They weren't going to go to the finals with that Celtics team anyway. Correct? And now the next year, they were one round away from the conference finals, and they lost to the team that had the best record in the East and should have went to the finals, but lost to the Toronto Raptors. So now we're playing. Well, they're not that. And now this season comes, and I love Kemba, and I love what they're doing down there. And now everybody's going to say, well, the Celtics are way better without Kyrie. No, don't say that we're better. They play as a team, as a cohesive unit better. But if you're telling me that they're more talented, you're crazy, because now you're telling me that Kemba Walker's better than Kyrie Irving. Is that what we're saying?
Really.
And Kemba's not a scrub.
Let's not forget which one has the championship ring to his belt.
That doesn't even have anything to do with it, with the rings. When we're judging talent and skill, we're judging who is better and who has better attributes. We're not looking at rings, because, if that's the case, is Kyle Lowry better than Russell Westbrook?
If you don't get at least a few rings. Kemba Walker had a good career so far.
Still is.
He's still one of the most relevant New York-based point guard playing in the
Correct.
NBA right now, especially Kyrie Irving, New Jersey-based point guard playing in the NBA. But he's had his struggles.
He has struggles.
Can't blame him for that. And like you said, the guy has a lot of development to do.
Correct.
As far as getting along with the players he's playing on this roster right now. With Kyrie Irving, he's just below average, but it's just a matter of seeing what the future is going to hold for this guy.
And that's what I think we need to. This year with the Nets was not going to be a championship year anyway. Kevin Durant is going to be coming back next year. Now, Kyrie had those comments the other day about, I guess he said, one or two pieces away. He mentioned some other guys. He didn't mention others. That kind of alienates certain players. It could draw dissension, but that's about how they clear that up in the locker room, because as much as we could say about media and stuff like that, those 12 gentlemen are in the locker room. When you growing up with your brother, you're going to make mistakes. It's about how you look your brother in the eye and how you apologize on those mistakes. If they take care of that in the locker room internally, then it don't mean spit about what we all think and what the media want to draw about it. If they come to an understanding, it's good, it's good. Listen, Shaq and Kobe weren't the best friends, but guess what? When it's time to win and bring championship, you ain't going to like everybody. You go to work, you might not like all your coworkers, but respect is a whole different understanding. And if you can come to some understanding where you can win, then that's all that matters. So now with the outside attention away, all right, the Brooklyn Nets are in 8th place. Last year, they were a 6th place Western Conference team. They worked hard. They're coached very well by Kenny Atkinson, a Long Island guy. They did have D'Angelo.
They have with D'Angelo Russell. They traded him for a guy who's not going to play until 1 year into his contract.
Correct.
And he has only 2 guaranteed years. And he could opt out to the 3rd year, depending on how well the Nets do. And the Nets are about a year or two away from winning a championship with this.
Correct.
But It's tough to say how they're going to hold their own when they're at full strength, when they're healthy, if Kevin Durant's going to be the same. If Kyrie Irving is going to continue being below average, underachieving. It's going to be tough to determine that.
It's going to be tough, but look, Kyrie started off the season, had 50 the first game, missed the buzzer beater by bare inches, had some other good games during the stretch. He gets hurt. He hasn't played for about 2 months. He came back. He looked solid. He had some games here and there. The Jazz won 10 games in a row before they lost to the Jazz. You know, they played some guys in that. They won some games, and they played some teams in that stretch where it went back and forth. It's just unfair to judge them because they haven't. Forget Kevin Durant. He's coming back next year. They haven't had a complete healthy roster for us to say what it is. Kyrie got hurt. LeVert was out for a month and a half, correct? Dinwiddie was carrying the team to an extent with Jordan and other guys for what it is. They're in the AFC. The East is actually a lot better than what people thought it was. So the top 6 is what it is. You got Milwaukee most likely is going to be the number 1 seed. But you got Miami, upstart.
We got to get to Miami because nobody expected Miami to be. They're like above average if anything.
Look how good Indiana is. Oladipo hasn't come back. Just imagine when he comes back and he gets his legs underneath him. With Toronto, with Siakam. Nobody thought, I didn't even think Toronto would be that good. There's so many teams that are in that mix now.
Don't forget the Philadelphia 76ers.
Who's been up and down. And they've been good. If they would have ever been consistent, who knows what their record would have been. They're amazing at home. They've had injuries and other issues, and on the road is a different story. But the Brooklyn Nets can still get to the 6th seed, believe it or not, in the East. If they got to the 6th seed, that would be the same thing they were at last year with Kyrie Irving. But their ceiling for this year is not the NBA Finals. So if they didn't go to the postseason, or if they don't go to the postseason, everybody's going to say Kyrie's bringing the team down. That's an unfair analysis. He didn't play 82 games. You understand that? If he would have played 82 games, who knows? You know, if they would have had a lot of those different factors together, who knows how the season goes? They say that now. If Durant comes back next year and he looks good and they're playing and they win 50-something games, how far does that conversation go?
What do you think is going to be an easier matchup for the Brooklyn Nets if the playoffs started today? Milwaukee, Boston, or Miami? Because they did beat Miami last week, and well, they haven't played the Milwaukee Bucks yet, so we don't know how they're going to match up against them. They got to win for Philly. They haven't beat, Toronto, they smoked them earlier in the season. It just, what do you think is going to be the toughest matchup if the Nets get as high anywhere between 8th and 6th seed?
Well, they don't want no parts of Milwaukee. Unless something catastrophic changes, the 8th seed is what everybody wants to stay the hell out of in the Eastern Conference. So Milwaukee, even full strength, they don't want no parts of that team. That's a terrible matchup. Now, the Celtics, if Kyrie is healthy and there with LeVert, with those guys, is a hell of a matchup. And I actually would want to see that in the first round for the reasons of him playing against his old team. And that might bring a little bit extra spice to the rivalry. Miami, only if Kyrie is completely healthy, because Miami's coach is very good. They defend. They do have Jimmy Butler. They got all their guys playing well, even though I want to see how those kids work in the playoffs, because, Nunn and Hero are amazing and all those other, Robertson, they're good. But when it's playoff time, that's a different kind of light. So let's see how your shots fall, and let's see how you play when every possession is more important in the postseason and everything is more delicate. But I like the chances against them, even though they would probably want to stay away from Miami. Celtics would probably be a smarter matchup if they would want to catch, if, however, the seeding works out. But at this point, they need to worry about no seed. They just need to win basketball games so they can just continue to stay a seed in the Eastern Conference and then go from there,
Yeah, the closest behind them is Charlotte Hornets, and of course they're going to
4 games or something, but that's still...
let's not forget there's Chicago Bulls, who had an incredible win against the Charlotte Hornets earlier this
Absolutely.
year. Man, it's just tough to talk about. You can't sleep on Zach LaVine. You can't sleep on Kobe White.
No, those guys can play.
You can't sleep on the Chicago Bulls.
Carter down there, they got some players.
If the Nets can't hold the row in the top 8.
Marketing can play too. They got some ballers on that team, so they can get hot too as well, and go into a surge. So the bottom half is interesting.
But if the Nets do miss the playoffs with this type of roster and Kyrie Irving being the lead, It would just be like how LeBron James Lakers missed the playoffs with his first year in the league.
It would hurt.
In the very next year, they skyrocketed to top 2 in the NBA. Speaking of the Lakers, really Lakers, Orlando.
You know
what happened, fam?
And Gordon, he was incredible. I mean, the things he was doing 2 nights ago was wild. Orlando's one of those teams too that they're really like they're Jekyll and Hyde. Yeah, when they play on a good night, bro, that team. They got Augustine who can make shots. You got Fournier. You got Gordon. They got guys that can make shots on that team. So Mr. Bamba down there, that's a very interesting team, and that might have been one of the nights that the Lakers, that was their first loss against a team under 500. That might have been their night. They're just like, okay.
I mean, Anthony Davis, to be fair, but you can't lose to Orlando. Oh,
it's tough. At home.
That's a slap to the face.
Yeah, they got ripped the next day in the media for that one, but
But you know what? The Lakers are gonna find a way to bounce back and steamroll their way into the finals. Because the first round, who would they get?
It won't even really matter.
They're going to probably get your sweep. Well, honestly, San Antonio's going to be a tougher matchup for the Lakers because
the culture, yes.
And not to get to the coaching experience of Greg Popovich, that's going to be a tough matchup for the Lakers.
They'll make them work.
That would be tough. And also, the uprising Memphis Grizzlies, who are getting their group back, thanks to a certain point guard in John Morant.
Yes, sir. That
what
kid.
You think about this kid because John Morant is just.
He's big time. He's big time, and they with Mr. Jackson down there, Kyle Anderson, they got a lot of keys on Dylan Brooks. That team is good. I'm a Knicks fan, but I'm actually hoping that they could get the number 1 pick, so they could, or somehow just draft James Wiseman. Bring a Memphis kid back home. I think he would. I think him with Morant and Brooks and Jared Jackson. I think they would be special. And John Morant is. This is why I guess they sent Michael Conley going, to Utah because they knew and they seen, a lot of guys say that to me that's Knicks fans. They say, "Dag, we're stupid. We should have drafted." Well, how we were stupid? We never had an opportunity to draft John Morant because the second Memphis made it clear that's what they were doing at the number 2 pick.
2019 NBA draft.
That's a whole different story. You know what I mean?
Sweepstakes. We lost to Zion Williamson sweepstakes. Speaking of Zion Williamson. We're going to get into this guy because he's going to make his debut sooner than expected.
Yes,
a lot later than expected, but sooner than expected. Because what do you think is going to happen with Zion Williamson playing in the league?
I think Zion's going to be good. I guess that I'm biased again to Dookie. So, but Zion has a lot of athleticism and a lot of upside. I am concerned, like how some people are saying, I guess, about the weight. You know what I mean? Where he probably needs to shred about maybe 20, 25 pounds. But that could happen over time. I think we're making that more of a bigger issue than what he is. When you're young, it's more easy to recover from certain things. But I'm not even wishing him bad. A lot of people, not wishing him bad, but that's another thing. Rather than talk about the positives of what he can do, it's always, he's going to work that weight out over time. And, he hasn't even played a regular season game yet, which might happen sometime next week. Let's see him on the court. Let him get his legs underneath him. And your eye test can only tell you what he does or doesn't need and what he can work on. And over time, those guys work those things out. LeBron didn't come in as big as him, but LeBron was a grown man coming in already, Embiid had weight, and Embiid still has to work on that now because he has time where he goes back and forth. But there are many other guys that have had these issues. Carmelo had his times where he would go, because he's more of a heavier set player, you know what I mean? They were talking about Marc Gasol came into camp just recently, a little bit overweight than what it was. The guys have off seasons, they're humans, they eat too, you know what I mean? They or when you're not training or playing as much, we take for granted that 82 game season is real. They're trying to work on the back-to-backs and all that stuff, but that thing takes a wear and tear on your body. Sometimes after the season, you don't want to play basketball for about 2-3 weeks. You don't want to see basketball at all. They got families.
Yeah. Who does?
Mm-hmm. So we the fans. We do. They're like, listen, I got lives too, but a lot of them gained the extra weight. And just give them time. Over time, he'll be special. And if we're wishing for his downfall, that's the worst thing we could do. He's got incredible talent. Why wouldn't we want to see him do well? He came to Millbank. The kids, they love him. You know what I mean? So.
Millbank. Oh, you mean for the baby dunks?
Absolutely. The kids loved him.
I saw highlights of that on Instagram. I'm like, that event was nuts.
That was amazing for New York, amazing for Harlem, amazing the Nike and Zion and that made him come out talk spicy.
Giving 3 or 4 year olds a chance to pull off a windmill slam.
How many of them will? Think about how many of them will be able to see Zion Williamson ever and again probably play or do anything live in front of them again, and how big that is for those kids and for that community to see something like that. So those are the things that we talk about with this basketball life, that you might not get those other opportunities, but you can't take that memory away from that 7-year-old kid that watched Zion do that windmill. That's going to be everything for him. He might talk about that for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, he really will. Yeah. Now we want to transition to another topic. The NFL playoffs. Championship Sunday. Who you got getting to the Super Bowl?
Man.
Chiefs versus Titans. What's your picks?
Well, I'll go NFC. Green Bay got assaulted by the San Francisco 49ers in Week 12. I mean, I think it was like 37-9. I don't think Green Bay matches up well with San Francisco. It's always hard to say no to Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers is big time. But maybe in a week we'll be talking about something different and you'll tell me and I'm an idiot. But I don't think Green Bay matches up well against San Francisco. I think San Francisco will win that game. Yeah, San Francisco
was no joke.
Their defense. Rodgers will have to be he'll have to be 2011 Aaron Rodgers and literally carry that team on his back. And nobody's really been able to figure out that this defense is nasty. If they get 10 or 12 points, that might be the game right there because their defense is really nasty. So I'm going to go San Fran on the NFC side.
NFC side, we got to get into that because it's David versus Goliath.
To an extent.
I said Goliath with the Tennessee Titans, they literally shut down Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. That was expected to be in the Super Bowl this year. It was expected to be Baltimore versus San Francisco, but instead, it's going to be San Francisco against either Tennessee or Kansas City. Who had an incredible come-from-behind win against the Houston Texans after being down 24-0. They won 51 to 31. Oh, man. That was incredible.
Think about how crazy that was.
No joke.
24-0. You lose 51-31. That means they went on a 51-7 spurt, right? 24-0, and you scored one more other touchdown. That's 31 points. 51-7 from the game on. That offense is something like we've never seen before. And I think Mr. Jackson, who's incredible at Baltimore, we kind of got blind to forget about who the hell Patrick Mahomes is. And Patrick Mahomes...
Why would we get blind about Patrick Mahomes?
He's incredible. And that's why it's hard.
They said the team that defeated you in the regular season game earlier, but do not sleep against Tennessee.
No. They have the antidote to beat that team.
Brady. They beat Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. They had a chance. They're in a position to take out Patrick Mahomes and get to the Super Bowl. Would you remember the Titans if that happens? Because the last time Tennessee was in the Super Bowl,
Steve McNair on the 1 yard line.
That game-winning touchdown. God rest his soul, Steve McNair.
Yes, indeed. Eric McNair.
Blessed day. But that was an incredible Super Bowl.
Absolutely, against the Rams.
The way they barely lost. They were like inches away from getting a Super Bowl ring.
Right there on the 1 yard line. I think it's Kevin Dyson.
Disrespectful.
That one was tough. I got my guy who's in Washington Heights, who's a huge Tennessee Titan fan, and trust me, he talks about that from here to the end of time. Hopefully, they can get to the Super Bowl this year.
We're talking about taking out one of the greatest African American quarterbacks of our time.
Absolutely. I'm gonna go Kansas City, but I'm gonna say that everybody should be very, very cautious of the Tennessee Titans. If Derrick Henry is rushing that football, that is nobody you want to tackle. That is nobody you want problems with. I'm pretty sure the Kansas City defense is primarily focused on him, which they should, because I wouldn't be able to sleep this week if I was the defense, because I don't want no parts of that guy. And that's that guy that's been just demolishing everybody the last few weeks. So they must be key on him. If they can make it a tougher, I don't even want to say stop. I don't know how you stop that monster. If they can make it a interesting day with him where he has to work, then they have no problem because they can score points and their defense is getting better. But if they start doing that, pardon my French, that New England shit, like the other teams and the underestimating crap with Baltimore, thinking that they can't do it, they'll be in some big trouble on their hands. Remember, Mike Vrabel's the ex-Patriot guy. Very smart football coach. The coordinators are very smart as well, too. They got a rhythm going. Those are the teams you don't want to play at this time.
Yeah, you really do not. My pick would be Tennessee and San Francisco. Tennessee versus San Francisco. Up-and-coming quarterbacks faced off in the Super Bowl in Miami. That would be nuts.
I tell you this much, you pick Tennessee and you go to Vegas and you win that bet, you could buy yourself a house tomorrow because that would be the pick. Everybody's going with Kansas City. And it's not people that's saying that Tennessee can't win. But if you do pick Tennessee big time and they win, trust me, that'd be your ticket to the Super Bowl because that would shock a lot of people this week if Kansas City was home. Not us per se, but it will be one of those things like, is Tennessee for real? Yeah, I think you should pay attention.
Look back at their highlights in the first few rounds of the playoffs and you think Tennessee is for real. They were up by 1 against the New England Patriots, and all it took, the Tom Brady had a chance to at least bring it down the field for a field goal.
Pick six.
He got intercepted.
Pick six.
Pick six at the 1 yard line.
Pick six. Not just a pick six. So, and what, Baltimore, 12 points last week? You're kidding? This team was scoring 25, 35 points every game in the season, and they got held to 12 points.
Because Tennessee lost to Baltimore nearly a decade ago.
Absolutely.
And it was back when Joe Flacco was the quarterback against Tennessee.
And that flipped.
Man.
It flipped.
They flipped the script. A decade later, Tennessee got their revenge. It's just going to be a lot to take in when we get to the end of the NFL season. And now I'll conclude this episode of Nothing But That Sports Talk. Thank you for being my special guest at this time, Ryan.
Man, this is good, man. This is amazing.
Basketball and football at the same time. We're going to be watching a lot. We're going to be talking about a lot the next time we speak because...
And I'll definitely be back. This is big time. We're going to have a lot to talk about, absolutely.
And for those other football players and basketball ballers out there, get your head in the game.